"Mom, sit here, we'll be right back." Those were the last words he said to me at the airport. Minutes later, I realized I had been left behind and my account was emptied. The betrayal came from where I least expected it, and exposed secrets, kept for years. What I did afterward became the talk of the entire city. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. Ellen adjusted the navy blue dress she had chosen the night before for the 10th time. It wasn't just a piece of clothing, it was almost a ritual of preparation. For a moment she had been waiting for months. Sitting on the padded bench at Chicago International Airport, she observed the incessant movement of people carrying suitcases, talking on cell phones, rushing to catch flights. The smell of burnt coffee mixed with the metallic sound of announcements, echoing through the speakers. At 9:15 in the morning, she should be boarding with Ryan and Caitlin for the Maldives. 3 weeks of paradise they had planned together during the last 6 months. Ryan, her younger brother, had suggested the trip as a way to celebrate the early retirement that Ellen had achieved after 30 years working as a nurse at St. Luke's Hospital. Caitlin, her beloved sister-in-law who had become her best friend, had chosen the resort and taken care of all the details. Ellen looked again at the digital clock flashing on the information panel. 9:25. The delay was beginning to generate a small anxiety in her chest. She took her cell phone and typed a message to Ryan. "Where are you? Check-in has already started." She sent it and waited. The answer didn't come. She decided to call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, until it went to voicemail. She tried Caitlin's number. The same result. Ellen took a deep breath, trying to push away the strange feeling that was beginning to form in her stomach. "Delays happen," she repeated to herself. "Chicago traffic is unpredictable, especially on a Monday morning." At 52, Ellen had learned to be patient. 3 decades caring for people had taught her that not everything happens when we expect, but she had also developed a keen intuition for signs that something wasn't right. And at that moment, all her instincts seemed to whisper warnings. At 9:40, she decided to look for the airline counter. The employee, a young woman with tied hair and an impeccable uniform, received her with a professional smile. "Good morning, how can I help you?" "My name is Ellen Santos. I have a reservation for the Maldives today, but my travel companions haven't arrived yet. I'd like to know if there's anything I can do." The employee typed some information into the computer, her fingers dancing quickly across the keyboard. After a few seconds, she slightly furrowed her brow. "Ms. Ellen, I'll check the reservations. Could you provide me with the confirmation number?" Ellen opened her purse and removed the papers she had carefully organized the night before. She handed the document to the employee, who started typing again. The silence extended for a few seconds before she looked up. "I have somewhat confusing information here. I see that there are 2 confirmed reservations for today with destination to the Maldives, not 3. One is in the name of Ryan Santos and the other in the name of Caitlin Santos." Ellen felt as if the floor had moved slightly beneath her feet. "What do you mean 2 reservations? We bought 3 tickets together. I have the proof right here." "Could you show me?" With hands that were beginning to tremble imperceptibly, Ellen opened the folder where she kept all the travel documents. She removed a printed sheet with the reservation details. The employee examined the paper with increasing attention. "Miss Ellen, I need to tell you that this document doesn't match our system. I'm going to ask you to wait a moment while I check with my supervisor." Ellen's heart began to beat faster. She sat down again on the bench, watching the employee walk toward a desk at the back of the counter. Through the glass, she could see discreet gestures and concerned expressions. Something was very wrong. She took her cell phone again and called Ryan. Once more voicemail. This time she decided to leave a message. "Ryan, I'm at the airport, and there seems to be a problem with the reservations. Please call me urgently." The employee returned, accompanied by an older woman with grey hair and a serious but kind expression. "Ms. Ellen, I'm Ms. Connie, supervisor of customer service. My colleague explained the situation to me. Unfortunately, I need to confirm that we didn't find any reservation in your name in our system. The 2 tickets that appear here were issued last night. and have already been used for check-in about 2 hours ago. Check-in 2 hours ago, Ellen repeated, unable to fully process the information. But they were coming to pick me up at home. We arranged to come together. Ms. Connie exchanged a sympathetic look with the younger employee. Ma'am, would you be able to check your bank account? Sometimes when there are problems with reservations, it's important to verify if the payments were processed correctly. Ellen opened the banking app on her cell phone. When the screen loaded and showed the statement, she felt as if someone had removed all the air from her lungs. Her account, which the previous Friday had a balance of $120,000, the result of years of savings and her early retirement settlement, now showed only $2,300. My God, she whispered, unable to take her eyes off the screen. Mrs. Connie approached gently. Are you okay? Do you need to sit down? Ellen couldn't respond. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the statement, seeing a sequence of transactions she didn't recognize. Transfers, online purchases, payments that formed a frightening pattern. Everything had been moved on Friday and over the weekend, exactly when she had given her card to Ryan to facilitate last-minute payments for the trip. The room seemed to spin slightly. Ellen closed her eyes and breathed deeply, as she had learned to do during the most difficult moments at the hospital. When she opened them again, she found Ms. Connie's compassionate gaze. Have they already boarded? She asked with a voice firmer than expected. Yes, ma'am. The flight took off at 8:15. Ellen put the cell phone in her purse and stood up. For a moment she felt lost, as if she didn't know which direction to take. But then something inside her reorganized, the same strength that had sustained her for decades, caring for people in critical moments, began to emerge. Ms. Connie, could you help me? I need to understand exactly what happened here and take some measures. The supervisor nodded. Of course, Ms. Ellen. Let's start with what you need to do now to protect your accounts. During the following hour, Ellen discovered details that assembled a painful puzzle. Ryan had called the airline on Sunday, explaining that there had been a change of plans and that he needed to cancel one of the reservations. Since he had access to his sister's data, after all, she had trusted him with all her information. He managed to make the cancellation without major questions. The refund money had been credited to an account that Ryan had recently opened, using Ellen's documents that she had lent him to facilitate some banking procedures. The other transactions showed first-class purchases, hotel upgrades, exclusive excursions, and even expensive jewelry, all paid with the money Ellen had saved during years of dedicated work. Ms. Connie didn't limit herself to the service protocol. There was something in Ellen's dignified posture, in the way she faced the discovery without falling apart right there, that touched the heart of the experienced employee. She, personally, helped block all cards, guided her on how to file a police report, and even got the contact of a lawyer specialized in family financial crimes. Ms. Ellen, said Ms. Connie when they finished all the immediate procedures, I know it's not my place, but I have 3 children, and I can't imagine how someone is capable of doing this to their own family. You are not alone in this situation. Ellen smiled for the first time in hours. Thank you, Connie. You have no idea how much your help means to me. As she walked toward the airport exit, Ellen felt a strange mixture of emotions. The pain of betrayal was still raw, but something else was forming inside her. A determination she hadn't felt in years. Ryan and Caitlin might have thought they had found an easy victim in the dedicated nurse who always put family first. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Ellen stopped at the airport door and looked back one last time. When she left there, she would no longer be the same person who had arrived in the morning with a blue dress and dreams of a tropical paradise. She would be someone who learned, in the most painful way possible, that trust is a gift too precious to be given without criteria. Ellen arrived home late afternoon with a strange sensation of visiting her own life. Each object seemed loaded with different meanings. The living room table where they had planned the trip, the family photographs on the shelf, even the flowers that Caitlin had brought the week before seemed to whisper lies disguised as affection. She sat on the couch and opened her laptop. During the way back from the airport, she had made a decision. She would not be a passive victim. If Ryan and Caitlin thought they could simply disappear with her money and leave her behind, they were completely mistaken. But first, she needed to understand exactly the dimension of what had happened. She began by reviewing all the conversations she had with her brother in the last weeks. Now, with eyes opened by the discovery, each dialogue gained a different tone. The questions about her banking passwords disguised as concern with security. The suggestions for her to put Ryan as co-holder of some accounts to facilitate in case of emergency. The insistence for her to take vacations and stop worrying about everything because he and Caitlin would take care of all the details. The phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Ellen?" Ryan's voice sounded distant, probably through an international call. "Ellen, are you there?" Ellen took a deep breath before answering. "I am, Ryan. By the way, how was the check-in? At the airport?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Ellen, I can explain everything. Things got very complicated and—" "Complicated?" Ellen interrupted, feeling a controlled anger rise in her throat. "Ryan, my account is practically empty. You subordinated without me using my own money. How exactly can that be explained?" "Look, sis, it all happened very quickly. Some urgent debts came up, and I was going to replace everything before the trip, but there wasn't enough time. I just needed to use some of the borrowed money." "Some?" Ellen looked again at the statement on the computer. "Ryan, it's almost $120,000. That's not some of anything." The call went silent for a few seconds. When Ryan spoke again, his voice had a different tone, more defensive. "Ellen, you always had money to spare. Caitlin and I are going through real difficulties. I thought you would understand being family." "I understand being family, Ryan. That's why I trusted you with my passwords, my documents, my account. And you used that trust to rob me." "Don't talk like that. It wasn't robbery, it was borrowed. We're going to return everything." Ellen stood up and began to pace the living room. "When, Ryan? When are you going to return it? In 5 years? 10? Or only when I need to sell the house because I don't have anything else?" "Look, you're exaggerating. It's not that dramatic." At that moment, Ellen felt something break inside her. The patience, the understanding, the tendency to always find excuses for the people she loved. Everything fell apart at once. "Dramatic, Ryan. I was sitting at the airport like an idiot waiting for you to show up. I discovered that I had no ticket, that my account was empty, that you had already boarded hours ago. If that's not dramatic, I don't know what is." "Ellen, no, Ryan, now you listen. I am very hurt and very disappointed, but mainly I am determined to recover every cent of my money. And if you think you're going to enjoy these holidays paid with the fruit of my work while I stay here dealing with this mess, you're very wrong." Ellen hung up the phone before Ryan could respond. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear or uncertainty. It was pure adrenaline. For the first time in many years, she felt completely awake. She spent the rest of the night researching. She discovered that the resort where they were staying had a sophisticated internal communication system. She also discovered that all extra activities, restaurants, and services were charged directly to the room and then debited from the card left at reception, which evidently was hers. The next morning, Ellen woke up with a mental clarity she hadn't experienced in years. She had coffee, put on her best outfit, and headed to the bank. She was no longer the retired nurse who had been deceived. She was a woman who had decided to fight for her rights. At the bank, Ellen explained the whole situation to the manager, presenting evidence of unauthorized transactions. She discovered that Ryan had used a power of attorney she had signed months ago when he claimed to need to pay some bills while she was working double shifts. "Ms. Ellen," said the manager after analyzing all the documentation, "unfortunately, technically we cannot consider this a fraud since he had formal authorization to move the account. But we can help you revoke all accesses and create a new agreement." "I understand," replied Ellen, "but I want all transactions to be tracked. And I want to know exactly where my money is being spent now." The manager made some queries in the system. Most of it was transferred to a checking account in the name of Ryan Santos and Caitlin Santos, and there are a series of international charges being processed daily. Ellen smiled in a way that made the manager feel slightly uncomfortable. "Perfect. So they are spending my money in real time? Yes, ma'am. And can these charges be blocked? Technically, yes, if we have a formal dispute of the expenses. Then let's do that. During the next 2 hours, Ellen and the manager blocked all cards associated with her original account, disputed all transactions made after Friday, and initiated a chargeback process. More importantly, Ellen opened a new account at another bank and transferred the little that was left. When she left the bank, Ellen headed to a nearby cafe and opened her laptop. It was time for the second phase of her plan. Through the resort's website, she discovered that Ryan and Caitlin were registered in the presidential suite with a complete package of luxury activities. There were photos of them on social media, him toasting with champagne, her wearing an expensive bikini that Ellen recognized as being from a brand that cost more than many people earned in a month. Ellen created an anonymous email and began to write. It wouldn't be a message of outburst or family drama. It would be something much more effective. To Ryan and Caitlin Santos, Presidential Suite, the payment for the services you are using has been disputed by the original cardholder. We recommend that you contact the hotel administration immediately to regularize the situation. Otherwise, services will be suspended in 24 hours. Sincerely, Financial Administration. Ellen sent the message and closed the laptop. She looked out the cafe window, watching people pass by on the street. Each of them probably had their own battles, their own moments of decision between accepting or reacting. She had chosen to react. The phone rang. Ryan again. Ellen, what the hell did you do? The hotel is saying our cards have been blocked. I disputed the purchases, Ryan. After all, they were made without my authorization. Are you crazy? We're in the middle of the Indian Ocean. You can't do this. I can and I did, and this is just the beginning. Ellen, stop this nonsense. We're family. Ellen laughed, a sound that surprised even herself. Family, Ryan? Family is when we trust each other. Family is when we plan things together for real, not when one deceives the other. You broke the basic rule of being family when you decided to exclude me from the trip that I myself paid for. Look, we'll resolve this when we get back. No, Ryan. We resolve this now. You have 24 hours to transfer all my money back to my new account. I'll send the details by message. If by tomorrow night I haven't received a penny, I'll file a criminal lawsuit. You wouldn't do that. Ellen looked out the window. Again. A mother was passing by pushing a stroller. An elderly man was feeding pigeons on a bench. A young couple was laughing while sharing an ice cream. Normal life, normal people living their everyday dramas and joys. Ryan, she said with a calmness that came from a very deep place. For 30 years, I took care of people in the worst moments of their lives. I saw people fighting for every second, fighting for every opportunity to start over. I learned that life is too precious to waste by allowing others to choose for us. She paused, organizing her thoughts. You chose to betray me. Now I choose not to accept it, and you can be sure I will do everything necessary to recover what is mine, everything. Ellen hung up the phone and ordered another coffee. She still had a lot of work ahead. The next morning, Ellen woke up at 6 o'clock, as she had done for decades when working at the hospital. But instead of the rush to prepare to care for patients, now she had a different purpose: to take care of herself. The first email of the day came from Ryan, sent at 5:43 in the morning Maldives time. The text was long, full of apologies and promises, but it lacked what Ellen really wanted to see: a specific date for the return of the money. She responded succinctly, Ryan, promises don't pay bills. I want a payment schedule and transfer receipts by 6 o'clock this evening. Next, Ellen headed to the law firm that Ms. Connie had recommended. The lawyer, Heather Mitchell, was a woman in her 40s with short hair and a determined posture. She had specialized in cases of patrimonial violence and family fraud after having experienced a similar situation with her own ex-husband. Ellen, your case unfortunately is not isolated, explained Heather while analyzing all the documentation. I see situations like this at least once a week. What differentiates you from most victims is that you acted quickly and have clear evidence. What are our legal options? Several. We can file a lawsuit for damages, embezzlement, misuse of power of attorney, but I need to warn you, family lawsuits are emotionally draining and can take years to resolve. Ellen nodded. And extra-legally, what can I do to press for a quicker return? Heather smiled. Now you're speaking my language. During the next hour, they elaborated a multifaceted strategy. Ellen would leave the office with an arsenal of legal and practical tools to recover her money. The first action was to send an extrajudicial notification to Ryan and Caitlin, establishing a 72-hour deadline for full return of the values, under penalty of immediate legal action. The second was to register a formal police report, creating an official record of the case. The third was to request from the international card issuer a detailed report of all expenses made in the Maldives. But Heather had a more creative suggestion. Ellen, I'm going to teach you how to use their own ostentation against them. How? So, they are posting luxurious photos on social media, correct? All paid with your money. Let's document each post, each expensive activity, each sign that they are living far above the possibilities they claim to have. This will be our evidence that it wasn't an emergency loan as they are claiming. Ellen spent the rest of the morning executing the plan. She created a complete digital file with screenshots of all of Ryan and Caitlin's posts, researched the prices of each activity they were doing, and calculated the total value being wasted daily. Lunch at the resort, $200. The helicopter tour, $500. The massage at the spa, $300. With each new post, Ellen felt a mixture of indignation and determination grow inside her. At 2 in the afternoon, she received a call from Caitlin. Ellen, please, I need to talk to you. Her sister-in-law's voice was different, without the usual confidence. Go ahead, Caitlin. Look, I know you're upset and you have reason to be, but you need to understand our situation. Ryan lost his job 3 months ago and didn't tell anyone. We were desperate, afraid of losing the apartment. Ellen interrupted. Caitlin, if you were having financial problems, why didn't you come to me honestly? Why this whole farce of pretending you had the means to pay for such an expensive trip? Because we were ashamed, and we thought you wouldn't understand. Wouldn't understand, Ellen laughed without humor. Caitlin, I've been a nurse for 30 years. Half of my life was helping people in difficult situations. You think I wouldn't understand financial difficulties? Caitlin began to cry on the other end of the line. Ellen, please, don't ruin everything. We'll return your money, but not now. Let us at least finish this trip. Finish the trip? Ellen felt the anger rise like a wave. Caitlin, you're spending daily what many families don't see in a year, and you want me to wait patiently while you burn through the rest of my money? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. And you know what makes me more outraged? It's not even the money, it's the humiliation. You left me sitting at that airport like an idiot waiting for you. You pretended that I was part of your plans while you had already decided to completely exclude me. The silence on the other end of the line extended for several seconds. Ellen, Caitlin finally spoke, what do you want us to do? Come back today. Take the first available flight and come back. All the money you spent beyond the original tickets will be deducted from what you owe me with interest, and you will sign a payment agreement with guarantees. We can't come back today. The return tickets are only in 2 weeks. Ellen had researched this the previous morning. Caitlin, there are daily flights from the Maldives to Dubai and from Dubai to Chicago. It costs a lot to change, but not as much as continuing to spend my money on frivolities. Ellen. No, Caitlin. You made choices. Now deal with the consequences of those choices. Ellen hung up and immediately executed the next phase of the plan. She sent messages to the closest family members, not to gossip or seek emotional support, but to protect her version of the facts before Ryan and Caitlin tried to create an alternative narrative. The message was carefully drafted. Family, I need to inform you about a delicate situation. Ryan and Caitlin used my documents and passwords to access my account and finance a trip to the Maldives without my knowledge. I'm taking the appropriate legal measures. I count on everyone's understanding in this difficult moment. The responses began to arrive in a few minutes. Aunt Louise called immediately, outraged. Cousin Robert sent a message offering financial help if she needed it. Her older sister Pamela wrote, "I always knew that boy would cause trouble. You did well not to let it slide." At 4 in the afternoon, Ellen received a call from the hotel. A polite employee informed that there were pending issues with the credit card registered to the room, and that it would be necessary to regularize the situation or provide a new form of payment. "I understand," replied Ellen. "Those responsible for the room are aware of the situation. They should to resolve this directly with you." 20 minutes later, Ryan called, furious. "Ellen, you've lost your mind. They're threatening to cancel our accommodation." "And what's the problem? You have money to pay, don't you? After all, you always told me you could afford this trip." "You know we don't. That's why we borrowed." "Ryan, you didn't borrow. You stole. There's a huge difference between those two things." Fine. We'll come back tomorrow, but you'll have to pay for the ticket." "Change!" Ellen laughed loudly. "Me? Ryan, you created this situation. You solve it." "Ellen, be reasonable." "Reasonable? I am being extremely reasonable. If it depended only on my anger, I would have cancelled all the cards on the first day and left. You to figure it out on your own in a foreign country." There was a long pause. "Okay," Ryan finally said with a defeated voice. "We'll come back tomorrow." "Great, and Ryan?" "What?" "When you arrive, I want you at my house. We'll sit down and settle everything, with a signed document and a witness present. This time of trust me is over." Ellen hung up the phone and, for the first time in days, felt truly at peace. She looked out the living room window and saw the sunset painting the sky orange and pink. It was beautiful, and she was there to see it, in her house with her dignity intact and her rights being defended. She opened a bottle of wine she had been saving for special occasions. She decided that recovering her own value was a special enough occasion. The phone rang once more. This time it was Miss Connie from the airport. "Ellen, how are you? I've been thinking about you these past few days." "I'm well, Connie. Very well, actually. They're coming back tomorrow." "Oh, that's good. So it's resolved?" Ellen smiled, looking at the organized file on the table, full of evidence, documents, and strategies. "Connie, it's only beginning to be resolved." Ellen was tidying up the living room when she heard the car stop in front of her house. It was 4:30 in the afternoon on a sunny Thursday, exactly 7 days after the airport episode. Ryan and Caitlin had arrived at Guarulhos Airport in the early morning, after an emergency trip that cost the equivalent of 3 months of minimum wage in ticket change fees. She didn't rush to the door. She didn't show anxiety or relief. She simply continued organizing the papers on the living room table, bank documents, copies of the extrajudicial notification, international expense reports, and the installment agreement she had prepared, with the help of lawyer Heather. The doorbell rang. Ellen waited a few seconds before answering. Ryan was at the door, with deep circles under his eyes and an expression that mixed fatigue and embarrassment. Caitlin had stayed in the car, visibly avoiding the direct encounter. "Hi, Ellen," Ryan said, attempting a smile that convinced no one. "Ryan, come in." The silence in the living room was dense. Ryan looked around, noticing the organized documents. On the table, the calculators, the notes. It was evident that Ellen hadn't spent the week crying or lamenting. She had spent it working. "Ellen, I know you're upset." "Upset?" Ellen interrupted, sitting in the armchair facing the sofa where Ryan uncomfortably settled. "Ryan, upset is when someone forgets to let you know they'll be late for dinner. What you did has another name." Ryan lowered his eyes. "I know. It was wrong. But the situation was desperate and you thought I wouldn't notice? Or did you? Think I would notice and do nothing? I don't know, I guess we didn't think it through." Ellen got up and went to the window. During the week, she had time to process not just the anger, but also the deeper sadness, the discovery that the people she trusted most saw her as someone without value, without rights, without the capacity to react. "Ryan," she said without turning around, "for 30 years I cared for people. They were patients who depended on me to live, families who trusted me to care for those they loved. Never, not once, did I break that trust." She turned to face him. "And you, my younger brother, the person I helped raise when Mom and Dad died, you decided that you could use me like an ATM." Worse, you decided you could humiliate me by doing it behind my back." Ryan finally raised his eyes. There were tears in them, but Ellen didn't feel the urge to console him as she always did. "Ellen, I'm so sorry. We're really sorry. It will take time, but we'll return every penny." "How long will it take?" Ryan swallowed hard. Some 2 years, maybe 3. Ellen laughed, but it was a sound without humor. "Ryan, in 3 years with monetary correction and interest, you'll owe me almost double what you took. Do you have any idea of that?" We'll figure something out." Ellen returned to the table and picked up a folder. "No, Ryan, you won't figure something out. You will follow exactly what's in here." She opened the folder and removed a multi-page document. Agreement for reparation of property and moral damages, prepared by her specialist lawyer, with all the necessary legal clauses. Ryan took the document with trembling hands. As he read, his expression became increasingly tense. "Ellen, this is very rigorous." "It's fair, Ryan. You owe $119,460, the exact amount that was taken from my account, plus the extra expenses you made in the Maldives. The agreement establishes payment in 24 monthly installments of $5,000 with interest of 1% per month." $5,000 a month, Ellen, we don't have that." "Then find it. Sell the car, sell the apartment, take out loans, work 2 jobs, do whatever is necessary." Ryan stood up, agitated. "Ellen, be reasonable. We have children. And I have a life, Ryan." Ellen's voice came out louder than she expected. "I have bills to pay. I have plans that were destroyed. I have a retirement that you almost ruined." She took a deep breath, regaining control. "And one more thing. The agreement includes a clause that gives me the right to seize all your assets in case of a delay exceeding 60 days, including the apartment where you live." Ryan went pale. "Ellen, you wouldn't do that." "Ryan, a week ago I wouldn't have thought you were capable of robbing me. Clearly we were both wrong about what the other is capable of doing." At that moment, Caitlin entered the house. Her eyes were red, and she had an expression of someone who had spent the week crying. "Ellen," she said with a choked voice, "please, don't destroy our family because of this." Ellen looked at her sister-in-law with a mixture of disappointment and pity. "Caitlin, who destroyed this family was you. The moment you decided to deceive me, rob me, and humiliate me." "But we didn't want to hurt you." "No?" Ellen picked up the bank statement on the table. "Caitlin, you spent in 1 week more than I earn in 6 months of retirement. You posted photos enjoying yourselves with my money while I was here discovering that my account was empty. If that's not wanting to hurt, I don't know what is." Caitlin sat down next to Ryan, defeated. "What do you want from us?" Ellen sat back in the armchair, assuming a formal posture. "First, signature of the agreement, today, with 2 witnesses. Present. Second, first installment paid by the end of the month. Third, you will never again have access to any of my financial information. Never again." "And if we sign this?" Ryan asked. "If you sign and comply, in 2 years, this story ends. And we can try to rebuild some kind of family relationship. If you don't sign, I file the lawsuit tomorrow." Ryan and Caitlin looked at each other. It was evident they had discussed this during the entire return trip. "There's one more thing," Ellen continued. "I want you to understand that this is not about revenge. This is about justice, and about defending myself from people who see me as weak or passive." She stood up and went to a photo on the shelf, where she appeared with Ryan when he was still a teenager. "Ryan, when our parents died, I was 25. I could have gone on with my life, dealt with my own problems. But I chose to take care of you, help you graduate, find a job, build a life. I never asked for anything in return, never charged, never used this to control you." She turned to them again. "You took this story of care, of unconditional love, and decided that it made me a person who could be used. You were very wrong." The silence in the room extended for several minutes. Finally, Ryan sighed. "Where do we sign?" 2 hours later, with the witnesses, Ms. Connie and lawyer Heather, present, the agreement was signed and notarized. Ryan and Caitlin left with a clear payment schedule and the certainty that Ellen was no longer the person they thought they knew. When she was alone, Ellen poured herself a cup of tea and sat in the backyard garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky with the same shades of orange and pink she had admired the week before, but now she saw them with different eyes. Her phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number. "Ellen, I'm Julia, Heather's friend. She told me your story and said you're thinking about doing volunteer work. I coordinate a support group for women victims of patrimonial violence. I would love to talk to you." Ellen smiled. During the week, she had discovered that her experience, as painful as it was, could help other people. Heather had commented that many clients came to the office thinking they were the only ones going through situations like that. She typed back, "Julia, I'm very interested. Let's schedule a coffee." The following months, Ellen developed a new routine. Twice a week, she participated in the support group, sharing practical strategies to identify signs of financial manipulation and protect against them. Once a month, she gave talks at churches and neighborhood associations about financial education and asset protection. Ryan and Caitlin strictly complied with the agreement. The installments arrived punctually on the 5th of each month, accompanied by receipts and sometimes notes asking for forgiveness. Ellen received everything professionally, sent confirmations of receipt, but did not resume family contact. Shiu. Year and a half later, Ellen was at home preparing a class on warning signs in abusive financial relationships when Ryan appeared at the door. He hadn't scheduled an appointment, hadn't warned. He simply arrived. "Hi, Ellen," he said when she opened the door. "Ryan, did something happen with the installments?" No, everything is up to date. I just wanted to talk." Ellen let him in, but didn't offer coffee or assume the welcoming posture of before. They sat in the same living room where they had signed the agreement months before. "Ellen, I know I still have 6 months of payment ahead, and I know that you probably will never trust me like before." Ellen said nothing, just waited, "But I wanted to tell you that you were right about everything. We saw you as someone who would always be there, always forgive, always solve our problems, and that was pure selfishness." Ryan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he had made since childhood when he was nervous. "These months have been difficult, working double, selling things, explaining to the kids why we can't do certain things anymore. But it was also liberating. We learned to get by on our own, to solve our own problems." Ellen nodded slightly. "And Caitlin?" "Caitlin is in therapy and taking a financial management course. She feels very guilty about what we did." "And you?" Ryan met his sister's gaze. "I feel ashamed, very ashamed, not just for the money, but for the way we treated you, as if you had no rights, as if your feelings didn't matter." Ellen stood up and went to the shelf, where she had placed a new photo, herself receiving a recognition certificate from the Women's Support Group. "Ryan, I learned an important thing in this whole process. I learned that true love includes boundaries, that caring for someone doesn't mean accepting any behavior." She turned to him. "I also learned that I am much stronger than I imagined, and that my kindness is not weakness, it's a choice." Ryan nodded with teary eyes. "When the installments are finished," Ellen continued, "we can talk about rebuilding our relationship, but it will be a different relationship, with clear rules, respected boundaries, and trust that will have to be regained little by little." "I understand," Ryan said. "And Ellen?" "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" Ryan smiled, sadly. "For having taught me that actions have consequences, for not having given up on our family, even when we didn't deserve it, and for having shown me who you really are." 6 months later, Ellen was at the airport again, but this time she had a ticket in her name, paid with her own money, for a destination chosen by herself, Paris, an old dream she had postponed for decades, taking care of others. Miss Connie came to say goodbye. The employee had become a dear friend, someone who had been present at the most difficult moment and accompanied the entire transformation. "It's going to be an incredible trip," said Connie, hugging Ellen. "It's going to be my first truly mine trip," replied Ellen. Chosen by me, paid by me, planned by me. And Ryan, how are things? Ellen smiled. We're talking again. Slowly, carefully, but we are. The last 3 installments came accompanied by beautiful letters, asking for real forgiveness and telling about the changes they're making in their lives. That's good. And you know what else? Ellen took the ticket from her purse. He offered to pay for this trip as a form of extra compensation. I thanked him and said no. I explained that this trip needs to be my achievement, not reparation for his mistakes. Connie laughed. You've changed a lot, Ellen. No, Connie. I discovered who I always was, except before I hid my strength so as not to bother anyone. The flight announcement echoed through the terminal. Ellen headed to the boarding gate, walking with the posture of someone who knows exactly where she wants to go. Before boarding, she turned one last time and looked at the airport lobby. It was there, on those benches where she had waited uselessly for Ryan and Caitlin, that her true journey had begun. Not the trip that others had planned for her, but the discovery of her own strength, her own voice, her own value. Ellen smiled, handed her ticket to the employee, and boarded towards the first destination of a life that was finally entirely her own. The end. Dear listeners, we hope that Ellen's story has touched your hearts and shown that it's never too late to discover our own strength. Just as Ellen transformed a painful betrayal into a powerful new beginning, we all have the capacity to react with dignity in the face of adversity. If this narrative inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Share your own stories of overcoming in the comments. You can't imagine how your experiences can inspire other people who are going through difficult times. Every day we bring stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the strength that exists within each of us. Follow our upcoming content and all